Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm back to talk about Legacies, episode 410, titled The Story of My Life, which premiered Thursday, February 24th, 2022 on the CW. Guys, welcome back. It's been a long wait since we last spoke about Legacies in December. Huge spoiler alert if you haven't seen the episode already. Please go do so first, and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. I am currently recording. It's 11:55 p.m. on the same night, so it's almost been 2 hours since it's ended. I know on the West Coast, by the time I'm recording this, it's 5 minutes away from watching the episode. So that's something there. But guys, it's a month longer than we thought we would get for this episode, but we are finally back. So much to talk about. But before, just in case, I did post a theories predictions video last month. I'll link it somewhere on the video here if you want to check out what I thought before we dive into the start of the second half of the season. Just in case. Otherwise, let's get right into what happened in this episode. Also, I'm going to try to keep this short. It's been a while. We got to get back into the groove of it on my side of things. So there's that. Episode title, The Story of My Life, was a quote said by Ben to Jed in the first act of the episode. In fact, let me double check. Yes, first act of the episode. Also, screenwriting, or I guess graduated screenwriting student, Legacies officially has teaser and 6 acts. I thought it was a fluke when I did the count on the season 3 finale. Apparently it wasn't. It is an actual teaser and 6 acts, so that was actually kind of cool. Anyways, I'm digressing. So anyways, timeline-wise, I believe it's the day after the events of 409, just because of the fact that I'm still under the assumption that Lizzie is under a 24-hour time clock in order to complete her transition. And by the time that we see her for the first time in this episode, she hasn't completed the transition into a vampire. So that's why I believe it's within the 24 hours since we last saw them in 409 with her getting killed. So there's that. Episode reminder, the fact that we do get the introduction of Lizzie officially being the vampire witch hybrid. I'm going to try not to call her a heretic, but they do call her a heretic in the show, even though I did go back on the request of, let me check back on my notes here. Yeah, from my theory prediction notes, thanks to Jay Sotho, who did a huge reminder of the fact that heretic was the coven name, not the name of what a witch vampire hybrid is called, like the name Tribrid. So I'm gonna try really hard, since I've been calling them a heretic for how long ago was season 7? Season 6? Season 7? A while ago, I think. 3, 4, 5. About 7 years? Shit, it's been 7 years already? Wow. Okay. Anyways, sidetrack. Yeah, so that's the reminder. Featured creature of the episode is something called a Pogwoji? I had to wait until this name popped up on the wiki page because I had no idea how to spell it, how Cleo pronounced it. It was very quick of a thing to know what the creature actually was. But apparently a Pogwoji can go invisible, and their spikes are made of wood. It really resembles a porcupine monster in a way. But Pogwoji it is. But it did leave MG to believe that maybe this Pogwoji's ability, the invisibility portion, is maybe where Ethan's powers stem from. No clue just yet. But apparently by the end of the episode, they didn't have to kill the Pogwoji. So is he going to be continuously shown at the school? No idea. But let's get right into the storylines of the episode. Picked up on 3 different storylines. First one being, who is the monster magnet? Second one, an unlikely alliance. And the third one, riddle them this. So the first storyline is mainly at the Salvatore school, and this is where we find out monster magnet being Ben, the guy we were introduced at the end of the last episode. In this episode, we have Jed learning that about Ben's story, which takes us into flashbacks that go all the way back to 5000 BC. So we are going farther than the originals, the Michelson family's origin story. We're going farther back than the Hollow's origin story. We're going farther back than Silas and Amara's origin story for the whole doppelganger thing. So, wow. I think we also go farther back than Arcadius. It'll be up on the screen, but I didn't look it up. I forgot that Arcadius was a certain date as well too. But anyways, we find out that Ben is actually Prometheus, and he actually stole magic, or in this case, what humans believe was the fire, but he stole magic from the gods and gave it and tried to use it to save his best friend and lover Asher, but when it was too late for him, he then gave it to humans, hoping that they would stop worshiping the gods, but instead humans wanted to use that magic to become gods themselves. Ben is also immune to magic, which we've seen when he went straight through Cleo's barrier spell. Yes. Is that the only spell? Yeah, barrier spell. We also see that the monsters were tracking him because apparently his blood gave off a very specific frequency that even Jed's werewolf hearing could not pick up. I'm wondering if vampire hearing was affected at all or not. But there's that. And so the monster that was currently trying to attack Ben was the Bokoji. But anyways, the whole Prometheus theory, not news to me, thanks to the theory brought to my attention by Golden Angel 15. I believe in my last video they left the theory behind. So thank you for that. It's definitely right on point. You definitely have your nose to the ground on that there. So kudos for that. We also do see, while Jed's getting all this information from Ben, we have Cleo trying to find a way to get the monsters to stop trying to find Ben, and she's able to craft this bracelet. We don't know exactly what it does, but it definitely stopped the Pokoji from having this need to attack Ben. He became very submissive after that bracelet was put on. But I guess the question is, what did she do to it if Ben's immune to magic, right? So there's that. And then meanwhile, MG was trying to find the Pokoji before everybody intervened, because the Pokoji spikes could have killed MG if it impaled him in the heart, because of the wood. So there's that. Talked a little bit too much about that, but let's go right into the second storyline with Unlikely Alliance. So this is Hope going to see Professor Vardamus, who is teaching at Whitmore College, and she wants answers about this sarcophagus that Aurora had tried to trap her in. But then Professor Vardamus traps Hope into a chambre de chasse after realizing that she has no humanity. She killed Lizzie and was just waiting to kill her again or try to destroy the sarcophagus. Meanwhile, Lizzie wakes up and completes her transition by feeding off of Professor Vardamus's blood, and she tries to kill Hope by using the backup red oak stake skewer that she had hidden in her hair as a hair accessory. So she tries that. We'll talk about what happens from that later on. But at the end of it, Hope wants Lizzie to help her stop Aurora, because Hope's humanity is having her be reckless because she just doesn't care about anything to really need to worry about, kind of a thing. So Lizzie then, we'll talk about it later, but Lizzie then astral projects to MG to tell him about her new vampirism and how she's going to see Caroline to deal with it, and to kind of pretty much tell him to not look for her and to stay away from Hope. Kind of a thing. So we'll touch back on that later. But the third storyline with Riddle Them This was Landon, Alaric, and Ted trading their gold coins for the Sphinx's riddle for a way out, which brings me to the last scene of the episode, which leads them to finding a djinn or a genie, or a genie, as the bartender to where the riddle was taking them, and the riddle was taking them to find the genie. So they are asking for 3 wishes, and where the episode ends off. Last time we saw a genie was in season 1 when Lizzie made all those wishes with Alternate Worlds Without Hope Michelson. So there's that. Moving on to characters very quickly, though, we have Caleb and Ethan both mentioned, but they're not shown at all in the episode. We're told that they're both left the school because of the way they react to Ben and his monster magnet type status. We also have MG stating that he doesn't consider Ethan a friend anymore. Also, we have We have Cleo confirming Caleb to be her boyfriend. We also have Finch, who was also off screen, being mentioned that she was taking the students of the school off campus for a field trip. We also have it mentioned that she was still dealing with Josie leaving, which again should have only been the previous day for them. So there's that. We do meet a new student or a new character by the name of Jen, played by Piper Gerda, who I was trying to wrap my head around, like, where have I seen her before, and she actually is from the TV show I Didn't Do It, from the Disney. So there's a familiar face there, but she is suspected. She's the one that encounters, she was Hope and Lizzie, and she was pretending to be Professor Vardamus' student, but she is suspected to be a god because she showed super strength in the fact that she tossed the sarcophagus right at Hope, and then she also just took off flying as if she was Superman. So yeah. Don't know what that's going to mean, but we'll have to wait and see about that. But like I mentioned, we do see the return of Professor Vardamus. He admits that he misses the Salvador School, and the only reason why he's working at Whitmore College is because he needs some funding for his research. Don't think he stated specifically which or what kind of research, but there's that. We also, in this episode, will talk about it. I guess I'll talk about it a little bit now in tidbits, was the fact that we get Lizzie and her experiences or impressions about her new skills as a vampire. We see her being fascinated with her fangs. We see her a little bit off with gauging how fast she can go now with her speed. We see her feeling pain when she bites into her own wrist when she's trying to feed her blood to Professor Vardamus. We also see her being a little disgusted when she is drinking her own blood as well as Professor Vardamus's blood, yet still feeling that thirst for blood as well. Which, a part of the tidbit I wanted to mention was just because of the fact that her expressions of how she's experiencing life as a vampire now are very different from all the other depictions we've seen from new vampires, from the way the Michelsons have shown their new lease on vampirism. Caroline's experience when she woke up as a vampire. Elena's experience when she woke up as a vampire. Damon and Stefan's experiences when they both woke up as vampires. Both whether or not in transition, but even right afterwards, are very different. And I think, in a way, I felt Lizzie's interpretations of the event kind of seemed like it was making a parody or a very obvious statements, but then at the same time I had to remind myself, like, she's also still just a teenager, so these things she could very well find fascinating. So that was just very interesting how many times they called upon it in the episode itself. Plus also she just pointed out very many things that, like, we just took as like default, like them biting into their wrist and it being seamless, and her saying like, oh, it hurts a lot more than they made it look like, kind of a thing. Her not getting a handle on her speed is something as well, which, I mean, I guess it's something because Hope is only just newly a vampire as well too, technically. So, and yet she seems to have a handle on all that stuff, so that's quite something there. So anyways, the other tidbit I wanted to talk about, though, was the other new concept that was introduced, and something, I guess I'll tie it into my most shocking moment of the episode, is the fact that Lizzie, we find out that Lizzie unknowingly drank Hope's blood, so now she's actually sire to Hope. So, to the point where it's now Lizzie cannot bring any harm to Hope's body herself. She pretty much intervenes whenever somebody else tries to hurt Hope's body. We also see her pretty much listening to Hope's every word, and she either agrees or she can't refute it at all. So very similar to the sire bond. So I guess the new concept is the fact that Lizzie's reaction to her sire bond to Hope is very different from a vampire sire bond, and very different from the hybrid sire bond. So, like, for example, the sire bonds that we've seen have been Damon and Elena, two vampires together, and that comes from when the human that comes out when it's the human out of the two has strong feelings for the vampire before they turn into a vampire. And if they get turned with that vampire they're infatuated with their blood, then that's how the sire bond is created. Now with the hybrid sire bond, that comes from the werewolf side of it. So the hybrid blood turning a werewolf into a hybrid, it pretty much amplifies the pack mentality from both of their werewolf sides. So as the hybrid that turned them, acting as the alpha, the sire ends up having to do what's being said. But in both those situations, it's always been kind of like statements or suggestions have been implied, never a direct order. Well, maybe Klaus gave some orders when he had the hybrid sire bonds. But yeah, something very different. But then, something very different. But then I'm pretty sure other hybrids could still harm Klaus. And I think Elena was still able to harm Damon, or Charlotte, who's also sire to Damon, was able to harm him. Or I guess it's very different, because I guess the question is whether or not is this a sire bond between Hope and Lizzie strictly different just from the fact that it's a tribrid and a vampire witch hybrid that is sired to the tribrid. Is it any different, or is it because the two of them are very distinctly different? Or would we get the same thing if Hope were to change someone into a regular vampire? Or if she were to because I'm trying to remember back on Henry in season 5 of the originals, and he was a werewolf that transitioned with Hope's blood, and he was more protective of Hope. So I guess we could see that coming into play. And I guess with Lizzie, it's just a little bit more like you physically cannot hurt her kind of a thing. I actually forgot about how we have seen her change people before. Interesting though. But we'll come back to it later. But that was just a huge surprise. It's kind of funny because Lizzie's whole purpose of going after Hope was to kill her. And now that she physically cannot do it, it's kind of like, now what are you going to do kind of a thing. So that was a shock. So there's that. But let's move on to favorite moments. So my favorite was the fact that even though Hope and Lizzie hate each other and they keep antagonizing each other and but now they have like this forced proximity with each other, where Lizzie is kind of stuck listening to Hope, and Hope kind of needs Lizzie to be able to watch her back, otherwise, as they take on against Aurora. So it was very interesting, but also the way that they were talking to each other. It's like in 1 minute they're like, they are greeting each other as if like old friends or like frenemies and stuff. And the next one it's like, I'm going to kill you kind of a thing. So as Professor Barnabas says, their dynamic is just very, very weird for him, which I thought was funny. But it was just very interesting how they play it off from each other. And I'm very curious to see how this new mission to stop Aurora is going to go for them. So there's that. Another favorite I did have, though, was Landon's speech to Alaric and Ted about his changed views on how he grew up in the foster system, believing that he wasn't worthy or it was always his fault why the foster homes he went to never worked out for him. And then how he shared that it was only when he met Raphael did he realize that that wasn't the case, and how they started to change the way they viewed each other's and tackling things together as brothers, and how that was the speech that was meant to unite him with Alaric and Ted to figure out the riddle. So I just really like, in that moment, I like the speech and the fact that he was willing to be vulnerable in that moment to two people who are supposed to be a lot older and wiser than him, and yet they were the ones that were acting like children. So that was something there. Another favorite I did like was just the interactions between Jed and Ben, or Jedediah and Prometheus. Honestly, they could have done a better name than Ben, because regardless, like, that's just too close of, like, me now trying to write my own stuff for hopefully one day to be shown on TV screens with scripts and stuff. I've always been advised to not do names that are very similar to each other, because you can very easily trip up. And this is one of those instances where it's like Jed, Ben, and it's just like now they also introduced Jen, the fake student, and it's like these are very, very, very similar names. So it's like, aside from that though, like they could have really done better. I don't want to keep calling him Jedediah now that I've called him Jed for the last 4 years. But anyways, they could have picked better. So I'm just gonna call him Prometheus right now. But I really like the dynamic, the chemistry between Jed and Prometheus. I feel like there is going to be something more between them that grows. I definitely like where the level. I definitely liked how Jed definitely wanted him to stay and like include him, and I really like the fact that we have an acknowledgement from Jed that like he wasn't always accepting of outsiders at the school and how he's trying to change and how it has changed. So I really appreciate being shown that action as well. And then it was just great to see Prometheus pretty much trying to protect them and put himself in more danger so that no one else gets harmed, and just realize I really hope he doesn't turn out to be a bad guy, because that would completely suck. But it's great to see a little bit more of them having time together, and I'm very interested, because essentially him bringing magic to humans pretty much allowed for the existence of every supernatural creature at that school. I mean, magic created werewolves, magic created vampires, magic came from the gods, which Prometheus allowed humans to have access to now. So yeah, that's a big thing. But anyways, let's go into top 3 peeved moments. I have 2 specific ones. The first one being the chambre de chasse. The concept of what was happening there was like, I was really hoping for it. We had Hope trapped in the chambre de chasse. We had keys with all these different people on them. We had Klaus, Landon, Josie, Lizzie, probably a lot more other important influences in her life on those keys. So I was thinking, oh, we're going to be going down like maybe a trip down memory lane. Maybe this is what could help us get Hope's humanity back. Maybe this is what she needs. And then to have her start off with the Klaus key, I thought, oh, am I going to see some archive footage? Like, I really want to see Hope reliving some memories. Kind of similar to with when Elena was in transition in episode in Vampire Diaries. I think it was 401. She was in transition, and she got to relive that one memory that Damon compelled her back in season 2. She got to relive the memory, and we got to see her watch that memory happen as she regained it. And I was hoping like maybe we'd get something like that if she got to see these archive footage and open up these different doors with these different locks and experience these key moments with these influential people in her life. And then for have that come out and be her have her humanity back on. I was so waiting for that. But the peeve of it was that wasn't even what happened. I don't like the fact that all she had to do was pick a key that was associated with someone, try it in a door, and then if it unlocked or not, that was it. She was set free. It was like, so she's just going to be trying a whole bunch of different keys. It's not about her finding the meaning or the purpose behind it, of like why she was in there. So like that was like a huge missed opportunity for me. It was a peeve because it's like you set it up to be like something where it could be something that she would have to come across a more internal barrier. Maybe it's whatever is blocking her humanity from coming back, and yet you kind of skipped on that. So like I'm very pissed off by that, because like that was a good setup to bring her humanity back. Like, and then it would have been, while I love No Humanity Hope, it would have been very interesting to see her with her humanity back working with a vampire witch, Lizzie, and they both take on Aurora. That would have been interesting. So there's that. Another thing that I was peeved about in this episode was the fact that if we're going to keep going back to Limbo and seeing like Landon, Alaric, and Ted, I mean, why are we not seeing dead characters that we have missed over the course of the Vampire Diaries, the originals? Like, where are they? Like if I'm going to be stuck seeing Limbo and all these dead monsters, why not bring some old characters back that we just haven't had a chance to see? Like, it just seems like, yeah, that's another thing I'm kind of missing there. But let's move on to random questions very quickly. First one. Do you think Alaric would know about the gods and what the proof of those myths on Earth would look like Professor Vardamus seemed to have known? Or do you think Vardamus just knows a bit more about certain things than Alaric? Because yeah, Alaric is good with history. Like, regardless of the fact that he's stuck in limbo right now, Alaric is good with certain research. But like to have like that immediate knowledge of like what's on there, like would he have known to research about the gods? I don't know. So there's that. Another question. How did Hope escape from her chambre de chasse if Lizzie left with the key that opened the door? You can't just tell me it's going to regenerate again in the room and then just have it be like that. Also, that room kind of reminded me about Harry Potter in like the sorcerer when like the Sorcerer's Stone, the first one, where it's like he had to fly to get the key that fit the door. It kind of looked like that in the Chambre de Chasse. Anyways, there's that. Another question. Did Jen, the one that Hope and Lizzie encountered, did she not know about vampires, or was it just she did not know the existence of a tribrid and a quote-unquote heretic? Because she seemed very surprised when Lizzie siphoned from her. She seemed very surprised when tribrid abilities popped up. So as a god, I'm wondering, wouldn't she know that? But then at the same time, it's like, she may not know that if this is her first time she's down on Earth and interacting with all these supernatural creatures. And she could have just been perched up on the mountain and being completely oblivious to what was happening down below. So I'm wondering. I don't think this is the last we'll see of her. But, yeah. I'm wondering why she wanted the coffin. Does she want to trap Prometheus herself, or was she grabbing it so that it couldn't be used against her own kind? You know? So there's that. Okay, next question. Now that MG and Cleo know that Lizzie is a vampire, how long will it take before Josie or Caroline find out? Again, Josie has temporarily left Mystic Falls because Kaylee Bryant has left the show. We don't know when Josie will return. Hopefully she is not killed off screen. But Caroline, I feel like if there's any time to bring her back to Mystic Falls, it would be to help her daughter deal with with her new vampirism. But with the lie that, and also if she's a vampire, there's no reason for Caroline to be away from Mystic Falls anymore, because her whole purpose for leaving was to go find answers to escape the merge. Now that Lizzie's a vampire, there's no need for the merge. So how long before the news travels to them about Lizzie being a vampire? So there's that. Okay, last question. Or I guess a 2-bit combo here. If Lizzie is sire bonded to Hope, does that mean that Lizzie's life is in danger if Hope dies? Just like the sire line with the rest of the Michelsons. If one of the Michelsons die, their associated sire line dies with them. Is that the same thing that Hope and Lizzie are going to have to deal with? Or is this sire bond mean, or does this sire bond mean that Lizzie will now have to switch off her humanity in order to be free from the sire bond she has with Hope? Kind of like what Elena had to do to free herself from the sire bond she had to Damon. If that's the case, how is a no humanity Lizzie going to look like? Ugh. If both of them were no humanity at the same time, that's going to be, that's going to be something, you know? So there's that. But let's move on to predictions very quickly. Based off the promo for 411, it looks like Hope and Lizzie find a carnival, which Lizzie hates, understandably so. She even says if there's going to be a clown, she's going to run. But it also looks like the students at the Salvatore School deal with an outbreak of students losing their minds, potentially. Yeah, don't know what that's going to look like. But the synopsis does read, though, that Hope and Lizzie find themselves at a carnival with an unusual cast of characters. Back at the Salvatore School, students are speaking their minds without knowing why, which makes Jed reveal a secret. And Cleo works on protecting one of their own. Meanwhile, Caleb and MG set out on a mission, which does not go as planned. Interesting. Is anyone else meant to be... Let me just double check the synopsis on Futon Critic, because grab that synopsis from the Wikipedia. Oh, okay. It also says that Alaric, Landon, and Ethan are also supposed to appear in the episode. Okay, very interesting indeed. So at least we know that it's what's happening at the school has to dealing with the truth, which I feel like we've done that before, but I guess we'll wait and see about how that goes about. But otherwise from that though, as of right now that I'm recording it, I only know that because I know there was a question in my predictions theories video. I had the question of whether or not are we going to have 16 episodes this season or are we going to have 20 episodes this season. So as of right now, I see at least 17 episodes with an air date. So at least that crosses one off the list. But there's still no news as of right now whether or not Legacies is renewed for season 5 or not. And I'm starting to get pretty worried because none of the CW shows have been renewed yet. And usually by this time, we usually get an answer as to whether or not we are going to see shows coming back, especially with next week. Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow are both having their season finale. So I'm a little worried why we haven't heard anything about any of the CW shows and their renewals for next year. I do know that the CW is supposedly being put up for market. Don't know how that happens though. But yeah, so I'm still very worried about Legacies. I know they're supposed to be done with production for this season in April. So we'll have to wait and see about that. The only other thing I do know is that in the synopsis meant for episode 12, Aurora is mentioned. So I guess we're going to see her again, which I didn't think we would. But that'll be interesting to see how that goes about. But otherwise, that is pretty much it, guys. So what did you guys think of this episode? What did you guys like about it? What do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, theories, and opinions about that. If you want my other theories or predictions that I mentioned, go check out my predictions video that I mentioned before at the beginning of the episode. If I'm able to, I'll put a card up above. Otherwise, check out the Legacies playlist on my channel to check that out. Again, keep in mind, exclude what we learned in this episode if you're watching that. But yeah, check that out as well. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I reblog, promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all the good stuff, all found in one place. Go check that out. I will say, over the holidays, I realized that Tumblr had changed the way that they format their URL codes, which completely messed up my linking page on WordPress. So I'm gonna have to go over there and actually reword every link possible that I made through Tumblr. So it's gonna take a while, but if you want to check out my WordPress, link is down below. Anything I post online is connected to WordPress. A little more organized, a little more detailed, but still very much work in progress when it comes to relinking everything that I did on Tumblr. So just keep a heads up for that. Otherwise, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I did try one thing in my theory video with the whole chapters function. I'm going to try that out with this video. Let me know if that's more preferred or not. Figured new year, do something a little bit different with the way I structured the videos. But yeah. Sorry, that's about it. Taking up your time. Have a great day. Have a great week wherever you are. Please stay safe. And I hope you guys come back next week to see what I have to say about the next episode. So until then, guys, this is Mel saying bye for now.